Okay. Now you put this over here so I don't spill it all over myself. I'd like to call to order the June 16, 2020 Brooklyn City Board of Education regular meeting. Appoint Mr. Rocky Neal as the treasurer pro tem.
Nice.
Can you call the roll, Mr. Neal?
Mr. Oper. Here. Mr. Singer.
Here.
Mrs. Barchak.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mr. Neal is here.
Stand for the pledge. Aye.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now on to Dr. Glykoff's report.
Thank you. I'm just going to direct your attention up here. I got a few things, although I know it's June and we try to keep these things a little more brief. There's a lot going on and I want to kind of share some updates for everybody here. Just kind of the school year ending is over from our last meeting to now. The last time I've seen you, a lot of stuff has occurred. Obviously, remote and distance learning kind of finished with new instruction on the 22nd. Students had 2 weeks. Grades were completed on the 5th. And then we had graduation ceremony with the community on May 31st. You know, I want to just stop there and say I think that was very well received by our parents, by our graduates. You know, obviously, Mr. Singer, congratulations to you and your daughter. But I think it really was nice to spend some time with each of our graduates and the families, and I think they appreciated that. And then it really came together nicely, and thanks, you know, Mr. Black and Mr. Smith for really putting that together. Just today, I taped the State of the Schools. You know, obviously that used to be at the Chamber of Commerce, and they're not having their meetings, so I taped that, and that'll be available on the website in the next day or so. Athletic department conditioning phase-in. I'm going to talk a little bit about that as that's beginning, and then reopening for school 2021. A lot of things going on with that. So, athletic conditioning phase-in. I put something on your desk there for you. I'm not going to read it all to you, but this is from Mr. Verba and some of the things that they're working on right now. You'll see that OHSAA has kind of dictated phases in of the conditioning. And so right now we're in phase 1, and each of the phases has a discrete, explicit 2-week time period, and you have to go through those. So on the back side, and you'll have to get your cheaters out to read that because I needed mine, that really kind of goes through each of the phases and kind of speaks a little bit about, you know, what are the allowances from OHSAA with those. So what Mr. Verba went through here, though, really on the front side is kind of talking about what programs right now we're working out. You got our girls soccer, boys soccer, football, and volleyball. They're involved in that. We're just looking at our high schoolers currently. But what they have to do, they have to only be congregating in groups of 9 and then with a coach, which makes it 10. And so they're really keeping it strict to that. As the phases go on, the groups can get a little bit larger, depending on whether you're inside or outside, and you'll see that on the back there. There's very specific protocols of what transpires too with each of these. So, you know, as they come in, they've got to be, you know, asked about, you know, fever and so forth and checked, and there's a lot of protocols, and there's cleaning protocols that go on as well. You know, for instance, you know, of use of sports balls. So, you know, if they're using a ball, then Rick's just the only one that's using that. If somebody else is going to use it, then obviously it has to be disinfected before, you know, Rocky gets to use it. So there's very specific protocols on how, you know, the schools have to respond to that. As you'll notice here, the coaches have been informed of all these things. There's been a lot of Zoom meetings with our folks on it, and they're doing some very specific training and timelines with that. So we're well on our way with athletic conditioning as we go through the phases, and you know, hopefully this results in a fall season. So, you know, stay tuned on that. You know, reopening of schools at the end of May and early in June, we did some surveying of our parents as well as our staff a little bit about that, and I want to share just some of the high results with that. We had 186 of our families respond to date. And there's some comfort here in that nearly 90% of the respondents felt that the remote learning instructions and expectations were clear. That's good. That's a credit to our teachers, it's a credit to our staff, that they felt like the expectations were clear. You know, we also asked them about, you know, how much work, was it the right amount, was it the wrong amount, was it too much, too little, and certainly they felt that most of them felt like they got the right amount. I think the last bullet point, though, is the one that really helps us kind of identify where they feel in terms of moving forward with 20 and 21. 50% of respondents felt a full return to school in the fall would be acceptable. Okay, that means half felt like, okay, ready to go back in light of everything that's going on. About 12% about a blended model. About 13% felt strongly about a fully remote model. Meaning, for whatever purpose. That might mean, hey, we think that's the way to go. I'm feeling, you know, COVID-19. I want to keep my child safe. Or maybe they have some medical issues that say maybe that's the reason why I want to do that. As I look at this, because I've asked other districts what their data is like, they're hovering around the same thing, anywhere from about 20% maybe down to about 10%. So we're kind of right in the median. My guess is this. Remember, this data was collected in the end of May, early June. My hunch is that if we went and surveyed folks on August 1, that number's probably going to be a little bit lower. Why? I think as we've seen, things are starting to open, as things are starting to, people may be feeling comfort. Unless, of course, we have a spike and something occurs. Those are the implications that could mean that might go back up. But I think if we're reading the tea leaves, that's some of the things that I would say. So I think that data is interesting in that respect.
How many families did the surveys go out to? It said
Went to
186
everybody.
Responded.
Yeah,
How
went
many-
to all of our families.
I'm ballpark, how many do we have? I'm not gonna lock you into a number. I was
Probably 1,000, 1,100 maybe.
Okay.
I mean, you got multiple kids in a family, so probably I'd say 1,000.
just, okay.
The 50% of respondents that felt full return, was there any way to see what if they felt really strongly against the other two, or just this is their
I'd have to
favorite
dig in.
option?
I'm going to get you the whole data set, and I'm going to send it home with you guys in my Friday packet, so you can kind of dig through. Because what the other piece that we asked for a lot of qualitative data, meaning, you know, what are some thoughts and what are your feelings on that, and that's kind of interesting too. There's pages to that. We also went into about different scenarios for next year as well, and we asked them kind of their acceptance rate. So that'll be some data that you guys can take a look at.
Dr. Glykoff, did we take a survey of the teachers?
Great segue.
All right.
So we asked our teachers a little bit about that, and obviously some of the things we asked them about was, hey, you know, as we start to formulate those plans, would you help us in terms of that? So many of them responded in terms of that. We also asked them a variety of questions, but many of them, you know, provided a lot of positive feedback from the remote learning experience, feeling that they got a sense their skill sets in terms of technology increased exponentially. I think we talked about that even in board meetings. You know, our teachers pivoted very quickly, and I'm proud of the fact they were able to do that. As I said, Google Classroom now is being used across every classroom, from kindergarten through grade 12. So we really were able to kind of pivot quickly to do that. And they also provided feedback on ways to improve that. So, you know, again, that survey data, I'm just kind of scratching the surface with it. I'm going to share that all with you guys this weekend so you guys can take a good look at that. But I think it's good information for us as we start to formulate our plans for next year. So let me kind of go there. So, you know, right now it's June 16th. You know, we're probably at least 2 months, full 2 months before opening. You know, as we see businesses reopen, what's this mean for schools? You know, we saw the governor's guidance document 2 weeks ago. He's actually, what I heard today is that longer guidance document is going to come out in full on Thursday. It's 21 pages long. It's, you know, it's a pretty deep, heavy read. It actually is quite daunting, and it also is very concerning because there's a lot of health restrictions in terms of that. Last week, though, House Bill 164 came out, and you may have heard about it. It's significant because it was passed by the House and the Senate. We're waiting for the governor's signature, and there's nothing to think that he's not going to sign this, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But there's still more guidance necessary. So House Bill 164. So kind of just tells you this is how the legislature works. House Bill 164 was kind of a religious rights in schools bill. But it had already had its hearings, it already had this. House Bill 319 was the one that many of the schools were trying to get some of the restrictions. So they said, wait, we're going to take elements from this, shove it into House Bill 164 because it's already on the floor and we can get it moving. And that's how the sausage is made, folks, down in Columbus. So what it did is there's a lot of stuff in it, and we got to get some detail in it. But it talks about teacher and principal evaluations. You know, a lot of the COVID-19 stuff that we talked about before. Maintains the cut scores for third grade reading guarantee, which is big because we didn't have a test this year. So they're going to say, well, let's keep those for another year, given the circumstances. Exempting RIMPs, which are reading improvement plans of our students. Okay, so exempting that based on the scores because we don't have end of the year scores. This is where it gets interesting. It permits certain state agencies to provide special ed services electronically in 2021. Look at what we're hearing now. Starting to provide some latitude to districts to provide services to their students in the coming year. And then it started to provide some flexibility to schools for the following. Third grade reading guarantee. As we've talked about over the last several years in schools, you had to have a reading license or a certificate in order to teach those classes. They're kind of pulling back some of the legislation on that. These next couple are interesting. The use of school psychologists as special ed providers electronically. I mean, we think of our school psychs doing a lot of testing and so forth, but they can also provide special ed services now. Many of them do already, but it's interesting that we've gotten this. And this is a big one. Assigning teachers outside their licensure area if certain conditions are met. I want to dig deeper in what those conditions are. But that's a big one. That's one as many superintendents have asked for, because not knowing what opening a school is going to be like and what if I need something here and not something over here, being able to assign teachers outside their licensure area is significant, is very significant. Now, one of the pieces that was controversial in this bill was the idea of furlough. We've spoken a little bit about that. Interestingly enough, the state of Ohio has furlough language. Local city governments have furlough language. They did not allow furlough language to get into this for the school districts. So what you should read into that is that the teachers' associations lobbied hard to really make sure that did not get in there. So that was one of the pieces that could not get inserted in there. But what we also heard today is that the governor is going to provide some guidance to schools in the next 10 days that are going to be basically, okay, here's all what the Ohio Department of Health has said. Now here's what that means for schools. My guess is that he's going to give schools kind of some latitude and make those decisions based on what their circumstances are. I think that's good, but I also don't like it. I think it's nice that he gives us some latitude, but it kind of puts us out on a limb in terms of school districts. Yeah, we'll have some local control, but so that's what I expect to see, but we're going to be watching closely for that. So certainly I will be, sharing that with you probably at our next, board meeting of what that means and what implications for that. But I think a lot of parents are saying, well, how's this decision going to be made? And I really look at it this way. I think that there's consideration areas. Educational and learning obviously is our first one. My push, and I think most superintendents would say, try to get in-person instruction as much as possible. It's valuable. We found out how valuable that face-to-face is. But I think we're going to have a fully online option available to our parents and families. There's going to be families that are going to say, you know what, little Mark can't come to school because of this. But I think flexibility is going to be key with that. By that I mean, the flexibility of maneuvering back and forth, or if perhaps we have rolling closures again come the school year. Health and safety. You know, we have to follow what, you know, the Cuyahoga County Health Department, the Ohio Department of Health, OHSAA. That's why I think the OHSAA, the opening of reconditioning or conditioning is significant. If that goes well, that may open the door for schools significantly. This is also, obviously, social and emotional. We have to support our students socially and emotionally. I think our district did that very well. You know, can we continue to do that? Well, we're going to have to, because our kids, what we found is that our kids crave those connections with their teachers and the adults at school. And so we need to support our kids. And then obviously the operational pieces, and this is probably the biggest headache right here. Resources in terms of what we have technology-wise. Do we have enough, and do our parents have enough? Facilities. What's this look like in terms of kids coming and going in and out of our complex on a daily basis, and what's that look like? Transportation, obviously it's through Parma, but nonetheless, if you know they have restrictions that only 10, 15 kids can get on a bus, what's that mean for going out to Polaris, where we have full buses of kids going out there? So those have significance. Food service. You know, look what we did over the last, we served 10,000 meals during COVID-19. That's a significant number. I'm proud of our food service for that. But what does that mean now for food service come the fall? Because lunchrooms, cafeterias are congregating areas. If we can't congregate kids, does that mean lunch has to be in another form? In classrooms, other places? I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot of ifs with that. But and the communications is the underlying piece, and that is certainly we need to communicate with our families and our community on what the plan is so that they can be prepared for that. Next steps. Continue to monitor what the legislation is. You know, what's the governor's order? What's OHSAA saying? Formulating plans for the new school year. You know, Dr. Colares is already, you know, talking with the team. You know, we've talked about it really since probably the beginning of May, you know, as we've tried to formulate and have a lot of different ideas and scenarios, but it's going to come to brass tacks in the next few weeks. We have to obviously communicate that with our community and continue to adjust it as we get more guidance. Because I think if we've noticed anything, this thing is fluid. And we hear things, and many times when you hear something in the public, it's the same exact time that we hear it as a school system. So when, you know, those 2 o'clock briefings, something may come out, somebody say, hey, did you hear about it? Like, no, that just said today. A lot of times that's real time that they're given that information. So, you know, those are kind of our next steps as we go through there. But I think we're in a good place. Obviously, you know, Dr. Colares has been working closely with the team here and myself, and we're transitioning for that. So, what questions do you have? Yes, sir.
Do you think we're gonna need a board policy as far as protocol for violating social distancing rules for our students? Do we have anything in place now?
Well, we don't have anything in place right now for
masks.
social I think the wearing of masks, Mr. Singer, will be something that the governor is going to come out and say. He's either going to say everybody's going to wear them, or he's going to say, we recommend. I think he's good. To be honest, I think that's what he's going to say.
So if he recommends, we recommend.
Exactly. Now, and again, that's a board to dictate. Do we want to interpret recommend as we want everybody to have it, or we're going to require them to do it? I mean, that's something that we're going to have some discussion on. Because that is probably one of the center points that a lot of parents and people have concerns about. Is, will my child be required to wear a mask? And you'll probably find that there's 50% of parents who would say, good, I want my child to do that. And there's probably some that say, I don't want him wearing a mask.
I had a question from earlier, because I was asked it, anything update on middle school sports?
I have not heard anything as of yet.
Okay.
I know that we're still planning for them, but in terms of the conditioning and so forth, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
How are they gonna play football? how do you pass along the ball to another person? You have to spray it while you're running, or?
I think these are all things that are gonna be worked out over the next several weeks.
Is there some kind of application of footballs that you can put on that makes them safe?
I don't know that. I don't know.
Can bring back stickum?
That I thought was illegalized. I don't think you could use that anymore.
All this tells me is that they can speed things through. I just wish they used the same approach and attitude towards funding.
Well, and so, well, Mr. Slattery, you hit it right on the head. You know, part of that was funding, and they did refund some school districts some additional dollars with that. Unfortunately, we weren't one of those. But, you know, there was a number of school districts across the state who did get additional FY20 funding with this. So, but, you know, our piece of the pie is so small, plus we've done pretty well with some of the CARES Act and others that we weren't part of that.
Did you expect to have more, like, information by this time, being June 16th? Did you think we'd know more by now?
No,
You didn't?
no. I really think that they're trying to see where the numbers and the spike goes. And I think OHSAA, I think these phase-ins here, if we see that, and let's hope that we don't have cases, let's hope that, you know, kids stay healthy during these phase-ins, I think that would be a good sign, and hopefully the governor will read that and say, okay, I think we can safely open schools in this type of paradigm. So that's my hope. I want kids to come back into buildings. I mean, we miss kids. They should be in front of their teachers to get quality instruction. And I guess I want to leave it at that.
Anyone else?
Thanks, folks.
Mr. Hoskins not here this evening, so we don't have a treasurer's report. So we're gonna go on to comments from board members and board committee reports. We're gonna start from Mr. Rocky Neal.
I have no reports today.
Okay. Mr. Rob Slattery.
Only thing I have is I did speak with Mr. Abruzzi from the rec center about the rec board, and they do not have a meeting scheduled due to current events, and he will contact me when one is scheduled.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Mr. Ober.
We had a Polaris meeting last week, virtual meeting. One of the Strong's representative has stepped down through the board through a conflict because his wife has become a teacher at Polaris. So they're currently looking for a replacement. Other than that, they're just waiting to hear what's going to happen and have to adjust accordingly with the, you know, with labs and all stuff like that. They had the added issues there, so it was fairly short and just good meeting.
Did they make a final decision on graduation for this year's seniors and how they were?
That was done virtually like everybody else did. Everybody had an assigned time, came up to the school, had the walkthrough. There was a representative there, either Mr. Lanning or Mr. Shepherd or Mr. Timmons were there, and it basically did it the way we did it, which pretty much everybody did, because as the other schools talked about, it pretty much echoed the same thing across the stage and real fast. Strong's took 2 weeks.
Did everybody get their credentials then? Did all
Yes,
the programs?
yeah,
All the
yeah.
programs were able to finish
Some of the
it up?
kids came in after the fact, just to tidy up some loose ends, but yeah, everybody got their
That's awesome.
credentials.
That's good.
Hey, Jim, a question for you. Did they discuss policy like we did tonight as far as the 2021 opening? Does this look like it's syncing with what we're doing here in Brooklyn?
Right, but it's going to be, you're there for 2 weeks, or 2 weeks, you're there for 2 days, you have a classroom time the other 2 days, but you'll have to be, like, if you were to go to Polaris at that particular time in the morning, you'll have to be sitting in front of your computer at that time, and then some kids will be Tuesday, you know, whatever, how they figure out Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever. But it's gonna, you know, we're still formulating plans based on what the governor says.
So there'll be Polaris 2 days and our school 3 days?
No, it'll be like, if you used to go to Polaris 5 mornings,
Okay,
you would go 2 or 2.5 or however they're gonna work it. And then the other two, you would have to do it virtually online. If it's a classroom thing, then they'll have to figure out some sort of schedule as far as if you're taking welding, when are you gonna go in and weld? Do you have to go in at night? I mean, there's some, that's just, you know, I'm just throwing that out there, that may be a possibility. There is enrollment, well, adult enrollment is down, obviously, and they don't even expect that to come back until January for adult enrollment, and adult enrollment's been in the black for last 5 or 6 years, and they're gonna be deficit spending just this year because just there wasn't enough interest with everything going on. There's been some back and forth as far as some of the teachers go for the high school kids because, again, you know, who knows what it's gonna be like. I mean, there was pretty much interest across the board, as there always has been, but how that's going to happen, I mean, they had full classes for pretty much everything. HVAC did take a little bit of a hit, but they, I mean, only meaning that they had some openings, usually they don't. So,
Have they discussed not accepting as many in, or is it like they're gonna honor who they
they're
accepted?
gonna honor what they can, and then,
Okay.
as they've done in the past, if, you know, it was first come, first served, if you applied late, then maybe if you have to look at possibly if you wanted HVAC and HVAC was full, you would have to go to machining or something like that,
Okay,
so.
thanks, Jim.
Mhm.
Mr. Singer?
I have no report.
I would just like to congratulate again the class of 2020. I would like to thank everyone who made it possible, their graduation ceremonies, and best of luck to you. And remember, you're always a hurricane and you always have a home right off of 480. And that is all I have for tonight. So we're gonna go on to a reading of minutes and approval of board agenda items. And tonight's reader is Mr. Rocky Neal.
Resolved that the minutes of the May 27, 2020 regular board of Education meeting, and the May 21st, 2020, May 26th, 2020, May 28th, 2020 special Board of Education meeting will be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education in said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Madam President, do we have to pull one of those off since I was not present for the May 28th meeting?
Okay, so, the May 20, which one did you want pulled up? Because there's May 27th, 21st.
28th.
28th, okay. So do you wanna, let's see.
So the motion is for the 27th, 21st, 27th, and 26th.
Right.
Yeah, we'll amend that. Okay. Rob, are you still gonna make that motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Questions, comments? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mr. Neal is a yes.
So then I'll make a motion for the May 28th minutes.
Correct, we'll amend that.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay,
Motion, give me 1 second here.
that's fine.
Get a rookie.
Does Polaris have shorthand for Rocky?
What meeting was that? Resolved that the minutes of the May 27, 2020 regular board education meeting.
May 28th.
May 28th.
28th, I'm sorry, I circled the 3 that we did. Resolved that the minutes of the May 28th special board education meeting be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved. We have a
So moved.
motion, right?
You motioned and then you seconded it,
Aye.
correct? Okay.
And then Mr. Roper,
Abstain.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Sparcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes.
And those were, we had motions to amend those.
Correct.
Yes. And then there's an emotion that I gave Dr. Glykoff for the minutes from one of the meetings that needed to be a correction.
Which meeting was it, just for my edification? Was it
It's-
the 28th?
Let me see, no, it was not the 28th. It was, I believe, the 21st. I think it is.
21st?
I think it's written right on top of there, the corrections that need to be made. If you hand that packet down to me, I'll find out which meeting it is. It was our last regular board meeting, I thought, or maybe,
Wednesday, the 27th?
yeah, maybe the 27th then, was it?
Okay.
Let me see.
That's the only one I see.
Do you see
Yeah,
the
it's
writing on the
on
27th for that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's the 27th, so there's an amend, we're gonna have that fixed. That's already been submitted to.
Okay.
Okay,
All right, resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the financial statements of receipts and expenditures for the month of August 2019, including all purchase orders paid and all then and now statements for the month as August submitted.
can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
So moved.
Will you second it? 'Cause
Second.
Bucky- Okay.
Yep.
Questions, comments? Mr. Hoskin isn't here tonight to ask any questions to. Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal is a yes. This is double duty, this is tough. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education and the Brooklyn Education Association hereby resolve all grievances, contract disputes, and secure the ratification of a successor
No,
agreement.
Hang on, hang
That
on.
was
No,
pulled.
that was pulled.
Oh,
That one was,
see, I pulled, okay. Pulled,
I think also, 4.2 was pulled as well.
which one?
Positive education program?
I printed this off earlier today, so.
Yeah.
no, they
4.1
replaced
and 4.2, I think were
4.2
both
and new
pulled.
ones for ours,
Okay.
but Rocky still has them,
So
the other
we're-
ones.
On my computer?
4.2 was
No,
pulled as well?
we don't need any more after that. I had mine all marked up today too, I was ready to roll. Thank you. Oh yeah, I better use this one. All right, where am I at here?
4.1 amended resolution.
All right, amended resolution. Let's see, resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 18-06127, a contract with Cuyahoga County Office of Early Childhood to be universal pre-kindergarten provider as attached, extending the term through July 31st, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is our UPK grant, Universal Pre-Kindergarten, and they wanted to extend those contracts in light of what was going on. So just so for you realize, we probably receive upwards to $70,000 a year from this grant. Helps subsidize a lot of the costs associated with our preschool program.
Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorize the superintendent to enter into an agreement with Positive Education Program, PEP, for the placement of students into their educational program per ORC 3323.08 for the 2020-2021 school year. Agreement on file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
So we have 5 students who we outplace because of their individual education plans at PEP placements. And I say PEP because that's kind of the general term. So there's actually 3 different schools that those 5 students go to. Again, per their IEPs, there is no cost increase from this year to next with these contracts.
And how much is it per student per?
Well, I could look in there, I think it's upwards to $40,000 to $50,000 sometimes per student.
Per student, okay.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorize superintendent enter into an agreement with PEP Assist Program for a behavior coach for the 2020-2021 school year. Agreement on file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yep.
Yeah, so PEP Assist is obviously an offshoot of PEP. We were actually looking to engage and use some of our student wellness dollars last year to this, and right before COVID hit. So this is to have someone who helps with our students and our teachers on strategies for some of the more behaviorally challenged students. So it'll be in-house instead of outplacing. We can really help our students right inside the schools.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the superintendent to enter into a service agreement with Lisa Dietsche, PT LLC, for physical and occupation therapy services from August 12, 2020 to August 11, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Again, we have OT and PT services, and Ms. Deutsch and her LLC provide that. So no cost increase from last year to this year.
Is it the same, she's the same person that's been here for a
Correct.
while?
Yes, yeah, we've
How
had this
long-
contract with Lisa, I think this may be the third year that we've been with them.
Does this coincide with the opening, with OHSSA opening of facilities?
No, this is OT, occupational therapy and physical therapy that some of our students with IEPs need. Sometimes they'll need occupational help, physical mobility, different PT. Some of our low incidence special needs students need that.
So she's not a personal trainer, she's a physical
No,
therapist?
she's a PT and an OT, yep.
Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorize the superintendent to enter into agreement with STEPS Educational Group for services for the 2020-2021 school year per attachment agreement.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments?
Okay, so STEPS is another school that we place some of our students with who have exceptional needs, and so we have one student that go to STEPS Educational Group.
How much is that tuition? Just for the edification of,
I think that is also in the area of about $40,000 to $50,000.
thank you. Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Pursuant to RC 33.1902, applicable laws of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, hereby approves and enters into an employment contract with Matthew Larson, a copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein for a 2-year period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2022.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
So, kind of give you a little rundown here. Obviously, an assistant high school principal comes. The vacancy that Mr. Hare now has become the high school principal. So that position was posted. As a school district, we actually had 50 applicants apply for this position, which was, we've actually looked for an assistant principal the last several years, and that's easily the most we've ever had. Mr. Hare and the team went through multiple rounds, interviews. We had administrators, we had teachers being a part of those rounds. They landed on Matthew Larson here as the applicant that they wanted to offer the contract to. He comes to us with some pretty good credentials here. He most recently was in Lorraine City School District, working at Lorraine High School as an administrator there. His title was Dean of Scholar and Family Engagement. Worked a lot of restorative practices with the students there, executing the code of conduct. Was involved in Train the Trainer for trauma-informed care. I mean, obviously right now we're dealing with a lot of that with our students, and so that's a helpful piece. Really did a lot of work increasing parent involvement. Prior to that, he was in the Bedford schools and was a teacher there, and was pretty accomplished. Received a Distinguished Faculty of the Year award twice at the high school, and was also the district faculty year. So assisted the Bedford High School principal in a summer school academy one of those years as well. So comes with some good credentials, and I think he's going to make a good fit for the high school and with Mr. Hare, and I hope that you can accept him this evening.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
I think so. What am I Trying to forget all that. Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
No.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Pursuant to RC 33.1902 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into an employment contract with James Verba, copy of which is attached hereto and incorporated herein for a one-year period commencement August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion.
Can I have
Second.
a second? Questions, comments?
So, at last month's meeting, Mr. Verba was approved for a half-time FTE for teaching. This is the complement to that, which will be a half-time athletic director. You know, personally, I think that, you know, Jim has done a very good job in terms of being athletic director. He's certainly got Brooklyn spirit. He's terribly organized, and he really has best interest of kids. So I recommend that we, you know, continue to have him employed as our athletic director.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Pursuant to RC 33.1902, applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into an employment contract with Lara Smith, a copy of which is attached hereto incorporated herein for a one-year period commencing August 1st, 2020 and ending July 31st, 2021.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Who motioned?
I
I'm
did.
sorry.
I second.
Okay. Yeah, this is a recommendation for Laura Smith to continue on as Assistant Brooklyn School Principal for 1 year. So I hope that you take this recommendation as well.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
No.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves granting a limited contract for the 2020-2021 to the following, as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Yeah, these are two regular teaching positions these would be new positions. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Nicolette Kunith. You know, as we've talked with the board in need of a science teacher, especially one with credentials of being a comprehensive science teacher. And when we posted that position, we got just a few applicants, but Nicolette really kind of rose to the occasion here. Nicolette most recently was a co-teacher in Olmsted Falls and was doing that for the year. Taught environmental science, 11th and 12th, honors biology, and also designed lessons during COVID-19. So she got an experience unlike any other. Has done some coaching, was an assistant varsity softball coach there at Olmsted Falls. So we're really pleased to be able to bring her on and hopefully take that recommendation. And in the kindergarten position, obviously we lost Jane Keeman to retirement. The team wanted to fill that void, and Amanda Koneski, who was one of our Title I teachers here in the last 3 years. Amanda has been outstanding, really knows her stuff, very sharp, and so we're fortunate that we can bring her on and put her into a regular classroom. So hopefully we take those recommendations and approve those this evening.
Anyone else?
A question. What's our current registration for kindergarten?
It's pretty low, actually. I'd say right now, I think I put it last week.
22 is what you said.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's gonna be mid-20s. I suspect that it's gonna start to warm up a little bit. It's obviously slow, as I've noted in my weekly reports, due to just the inability for folks to get in here. But Mrs. Baker, my secretary, has done a lot of work on trying to make it as digitized as possible. you know, making sure that people can get the documents into them. We've even set up a place where they can drop the documents off here in a drop box, if you saw it by there, by the front door. So she's really trying to do that and following up with a lot of phone calls. So I think people are so caught up in the other things that they're forgetting that this also is the school year again. But as you guys know, you know, our big time for registration comes August.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have 50 by July 31st, and all of a sudden we'll get another 50 that kind of roll in during that last month. So we just have to keep advertising it, and so that's one of the things we're going to keep pushing.
What's our pre-K population look like?
Well, you know, we opened up an additional class last year, so, you know, our pre-K has been pretty good with 3s and 4s.
A lot of those kids transition.
They do matriculate up, absolutely. So, and that's a good thing. I mean, we want to have every kid have a preschool experience, and we really try to push that as much as possible. And I know there's a waiting list already for our pre-K. So that tells you a little bit about, our parents are out there, they just haven't, you know, signed up for kindergarten yet.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the change in scheduled hours for Catherine Woodruff, science teacher, from .25 FTE to 0.50 FTE for the 2020-2021 school year.
Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, Catherine last year was teaching a quarter day. She was able to kind of up that to a half, and we're happy to have her there, so we're gonna be able to do that.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal is a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following certified staff members to work with students in the extended school year program as noted.
So
Yep.
moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, obviously ESY, meaning extended school year, for some of our students with IEPs, that we need to provide services during the summer months. And so we typically have some of our own teachers who sign up to do that, and here's a couple of teachers who will be doing that up to a relegated number of hours.
Anyone else?
Just for my knowledge, how do you say Sarah's last name?
Kesmarchik.
Okay. I would have butchered it.
That's why he locked it down.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 20-05-1632, reflect the following. Mira Naruz, school psychologist, from 0.6 FTE to 0.8 FTE.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, this was an oversight from last month. We just kind of copied over. If you remember, Mira was a 0.6 at the beginning of last year. And then when we got the student wellness dollars, we were able to extend her an extra day. And so we wanted to continue to do that. So that really should have been a 0.8 last month, so that we're just amending that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, question, how did she work out?
Oh,
With the amount of time that she?
She very good, and you know, we probably would even look at, you know, expanding that more as our needs are, in light of what I just spoke about, you know, earlier today. But we're very fortunate. We've got some very strong school psychologists in Brooklyn right now.
I know with COVID, it's creating quite an emotional strain on some of our students.
It is, you know, and as I said before, Mr. Singer, I think that, you know, we cannot underestimate the health and wellness and the social emotional issues that we need to support our kids. As I said before, I don't want to be redundant, but they crave the relationships that we have here. And I think it was first and foremost, and some of you saw it when we had that parade around the school and around the area. Our kids really missed their teachers, and to be very honest, teachers and educators like myself, we miss the kids. I mean, we get into this business not to be behind a computer, I gotta tell you. It's so, the social emotional needs of our kids are significant, and we've got to support them.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mr. Neal is yes. Payment of supplemental coaching assignments 2019-20 as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, this is really just kind of a wrap-up of the fall, kind of putting a bow on the spring 2020. That just approval of those spring athletics. Mr. Verba was very diligent about collecting information from our coaches and documenting their time relative, even though it wasn't a traditional season. So,
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mr. Neal is a yes. Supplemental coaching assignments 2020, 2021 as noted.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
yeah, again, now we come and we do full circle. We come to fall 20. You're going to see the full complement of coaches from, football, both high school and middle school, volleyball, etc. And we do have a couple of our basketball coaches for the winter in there as well. But this was really kind of the fall coaching piece there. We do have some language in the resolution, though, that speaks about just in case the fall season does not occur. We do have a provision in there, so we thank our council also for that support in that language.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Supplemental teaching assignments 2020-2021 as noted.
So moved.
Can I get a second? Questions, comments?
Again, come the athletics, but there's also marching band, so those also have to be approved relative to, what's going on for the fall.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Summer cleaning approve as noted.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, I think Mrs. Neal is ecstatic to be able to get this many folks interested in summer help, and, I know they're already working hard cleaning up the building.
I'm sure this year more than any other year, it's gonna be,
Mhm.
yeah. Can I have a motion, please? Oh, sorry. Mr. Neal, anybody else? Can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of following student workers 5 hours per day effective June 8th, 2020, TBD. Student workers shall receive $8.70 per hour as noted.
Can I have a motion,
So
please?
moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, we're fortunate to have some of the same student workers back from last year. We had a great lot, and so they wanted to come back and do it. Well, I will tell you, though, certainly there's things around the building, but we're kind of holding them also in abeyance for, August 1. And if we get a lot of our computers in at that point, we're going to use them for a lot of, the deboxing, if you will, and helping, obviously, Mr. Black and Mr. Smith as we prepare for, the 2021 school year. So.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves Chris Ross as the coordinator of CATS, Kids Are Totally Super, before and after school child care program for the period of July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. Contract on file in the Treasurer's Office.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, we have the CATS program, which is really kind of a separate entity of itself. It's our before and after care program. If you recall, Mrs. Etheridge did it the last year, which was the first time really we had turnover in that. And so, due to time constraints, she gave that up, and we posted it, and we were excited that one of our own teachers, or guidance counselors, Mr. Ross, wanted to take that on. So
what happens to his position as guidance?
now this is a separate supplemental. He's still the guidance counselor, so this is something he's going to be doing after his regular teaching or guidance counselor hours.
All right, so CATS is before and after school.
Correct.
So he'll
Yeah.
be doing it.
Yeah,
before.
and really the coordinator does a lot of the coordination work, which is with, the daycare providers, licensing, because they have to make sure that they're a registered licensed daycare provider. Employment issues, if they need to hire somebody or do some interviewing for that. Coordination of payments and so forth from the different parents and do we have a waiting list? Do we not have one? There's a lot of requirements that daycare providers have that a lot of people don't realize that's why opening daycares is a big deal right now. You think it's just bring kids in, but there's a lot of regulations that go along with that.
Have we seen a rise in our CATS numbers, or interest in our CATS?
Well,
What's going on?
Last year, Mrs. Barczyk, we had a waiting list, and we talked a lot with the CATS folks to be able to provide a larger space so we could accommodate more. And so we're looking at ways that we can try to expand that so that they can, because certainly we have every place has a lot of working families, and so the before and after care is crucial for our families. So I'd like to be able to accommodate as many families and students as possible. So we have seen a run on that, and the numbers has increased.
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper,
Yes.
Mr. Sanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Where am I at there? Okay. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the resignation of Leonard Pichowski, effective at the end of 2019-2020 school year as a 0.5 high school science teacher.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yeah, Mr. Pichowski, if you recall, this past year was a half-time Brooklyn teacher, science teacher, half-time ELL through the ESC. So he's resigned the teaching position with science. He's still doing the ELL. Because of our ELL numbers, we may bring him on full-time as an ELL instructor. So,
Anyone else? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education authorizes the treasurer to enter into a contractual agreement with comp management for workers' compensation and unemployment services for the annual contract period ending September 1st, 2020.
Beginning.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Okay. Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes the treasurer to enter into a contractual agreement for Cobra Services and Northwest Group Services Agency, Inc., beginning June 1st, 2020, per attached agreement.
Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Questions, comments? Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education, in accordance with ORC 3313.26, gratefully accepts a generous donation of $2,500 from Cleveland Touchdown Club Charities under the condition that the board shall have full control over these funds.
Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Questions, comments?
I just have a question. Who initiated this? Is this something we've gotten before?
I believe that,
Jim Verba.
yeah, I believe this might have been
Sean
either Mr.
Belville?
Verba or a previous
Well,
football
whoever did,
coach.
thank you.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we got money from them last year, didn't we?
well, we had
They've been
those-
around a long time. When I was in CYO sports, we used to go to these banquets, so they've been around for quite a long time.
We got that generous donation last year for the helmets.
Helmets, yeah.
Grand.
Yeah, it was a significant amount.
Yep.
Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Roper.
Yes.
Mr. Sanger.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery?
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes and a thank you. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education authorize treasurer to enter into contractual agreement for student accident insurance with Guaranteed Trust Life Insurance Company to be offered for the 2020-2021 school year. Contractual agreement on file in the treasurer's office as noted.
Can I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Can I have a second?
So moved. I'll move the second.
Okay. Questions, comments?
Yeah, by law, we provide that, and so this is accident insurance that some of our families take on.
Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Sanger,
Yes.
Sparcheck,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mr. Neal's a yes.
Do we have any correspondence related to action information?
I don't have any, Mrs. Barcheck.
I do have a question. Are we going to put together some kind of a resolution for the naming of the field? Is that premature? Do we have anything?
I believe it's on Matt's plate.
Okay.
So I actually have that, I was gonna bring that up at the meeting after the fact, because there's a couple questions of, that remain for, the scholarship part of that, so.
Oh, so you're gonna bring it up to the next meeting?
Well, I was gonna bring it up after, when this is all
You
done.
need other business.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another,
okay. You do that.
Or,
is there any other business?
yeah, there is actually.
Any other,
Now you can say, is there any other business?
yeah, is there any other business?
Well, we just had the request, about using the facilities for a small group, 20 to 25 people for, the awarding of that, Jerry Younger Memorial Scholarship. The date they're looking for is July 11th, I believe.
Is that a Saturday?
Is it?
I think
Yep.
so.
What part of the facility?
Well, I was thinking that the most sense to make for social distancing would be the auditorium.
Yeah, I would want, the only thing I would caution is I would want to get fully an okay that we were able to do that. I tried to inquire with a few people on that of, are we allowed to do that? And I got an answer that was as clear as mud. So,
And the only, obviously the sensitive issue of this is there are people that are coming in from out of town, they're looking at travel plans, the whole 9 yards, and
yeah,
what, plus, they would push it back, but one of the students is leaving for the military.
yeah.
Or not, I'm sorry, not the military, he's, got some sort of, hockey, something or other, he's gonna be out of town for a period of time, so.
I think what I'd like to do is try to contact maybe the Ohio Department, or at least maybe the Cuyahoga County Department of Health, and maybe see what their advisement is on that. Because I just would hate for us to be in a compromised situation.
I mean, looking at this guideline, I mean, obviously, we'd be beyond the June 29th. So it says you can work out, it consists of 10 people at a time inside or 50 outside if there's no influx of issues, but then you're
Yeah.
dealing with the weather.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a conditioning, and even within that, I think they speak about, social distancing even with conditioning. Because the person that I spoke to today, they said, they've talked about these allowances for weddings and things, but even that, they talk about dancing and social distancing. So I would just want to make sure that we were able to pull that off, because the last thing I want to do is see the health department come in.
No, yeah, I don't want
Cites
to, I
for
mean,
that.
I don't want any trouble, but if you could let me know so we could advise, or I can just send you his email, and if you prefer to do it that way,
Let me see what I can find out the
Rob,
next
what
day.
about a plan B, like Panera's, they have that meeting room, would that be big enough?
No.
What you're talking
No,
about?
I don't think because he wants
Probably
20.
not,
Or what about like the park, or is there some? I don't know if they're allowed to congregate at the park. I mean, I would hate for someone to make travel plans and then in July it's just going to be squashed, and we're gonna. I know it's
yeah,
very.
it's a sensitive,
Yeah.
all right, so
Let me find out, and I'll loop you in on that.
if you could, I'd appreciate that.
Okay. Any other business? Announcement of the next regular meeting of the Brooklyn Board of Education is Monday, June 29, 2020, in the Treasurer's Conference Room located in the Board of Education office, 9200 Bidoff Road, Brooklyn, Ohio, 6 p.m.
So is that the right location?
We're
Is-
gonna, The media center is,
Okay, we should have it here in the media center.
media
You said
center.
June 29th, correct?
Yes, June-
Yeah,
Monday,
just,
June
and I
29th.
think just we note that, cause I made the mistake, I was thinking it was a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
But remember, we changed that meeting because it would be kind of the fiscal year wrap-up meeting, so it's a little bit different, it's Monday the 29th.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so it's not next week, but the following, okay?
The media center, you said?
Yes, in the media center. So everyone has that noted, our meeting next Wednesday is not, we don't have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday. We have it on the 29th.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Executive session. The Brooklyn City School District Board of Education to recess into executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, and compensation of a new treasurer who is a public employee official. All matters discussed in this executive session are designed to the public officials and employees are as confidential pursuant to RC 102.03B because of the status of the proceedings and or the circumstances under which the information will be received and preserving its confidentiality. It is necessary to the proper conduct of government business. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Neal, can you call the roll?
Mr. Oper?
Yes.
Mr. Sanger?
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck?
Yes.
Mr. Slattery?
Yes.
Mr. Neal is a yes.
We won't be having any other board action. We'll just be coming out of executive session and adjourning.
7:07, is that what that says?
Yes.